Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce you to a couple of homies. We got Inquisidor, we got the homie as usual. Hey, how's it going, man?
Saludos, saludos.
Bien, bien, bien. And we got a new homie from Twitter. I linked up with him, with this whole spaces thing, man. I know Twitter can get really toxic. I know it really can. But after spaces, Twitter has just been this new town hall. There's so much discussions and conversations, debates. You link up with people. It's crazy. It's been real. And so I met my homie Noku from Twitter. Noku, what's up?
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. So we're gonna talk to Noku a bit about theology and faith and all that type of thing. I'm gonna link his Twitter over here in a bit because he's got some really interesting perspectives on faith and obviously, we also want to have some religious themed content on this channel as well. Obviously, also, so give the homie Noku a follow for sure. I'm gonna link his Twitter right here, and obviously follow Inky's YouTube channel. I'm gonna link that up as well. He's got some real videos out here because yeah, we can talk about politics, the economy, life, whatever, whatever. But we also, as my mom would say, we gotta dedicate at least an hour to God. You know what I mean? So that's what we're gonna do out here. But anyways, without further ado, that's too much intro stuff, man. So Noku, without doxing yourself, give us a brief interview of who you are, what's been your political and religious evolution throughout the years. Who are you in a religious sense? Are you this type of Catholic, that type of Catholic, whatever, whatever. I'll give the floor to you.
Yeah, I'm Noku. Um, I am Catholic. Um, I have arrived where I have, in part, I think due not to it's not my credit, more so than it is perhaps God guiding me, because for the longest time, like many people, I was quite secular. I was baptized when I was young into the church and whatnot, but I didn't really take part in the faith. I was very secular, and the kind of guide for me was like trying to just do good, without really knowing why. So when I was in my formative years, I looked up to particular guys like Martin Luther King, the usual in America that they teach you. Although when I was younger, I was more attracted to Malcolm X, because I saw him as kind of more realistic than Martin Luther King. And then Ron Paul ran for president, and I liked what he had to say. So I guess I became a libertarian for a while, and I kept up with the Mises Institute, which is like they do a bunch of economics related stuff. And from there, I found out about some monks in Spain and how they did work on economics and politics and stuff like that. It's called the School of Salamanca in Spain. And so these were Catholics. And having gone from the usual libertarianism, Austrian economics, etc., I found these Catholics more insightful. And, they were ahead of their time, having found out a lot centuries before Adam Smith and all these guys. And then what really changed things for me was when Notre Dame went up in flames. When I saw that, um, I was struck by the beauty, not so much of the church burning, but the response of the French Catholics to the burning. They were praying. They were sad, clearly. So it was kind of solemn prayer, but that struck me. And then I started getting into the doctors of the church, along with the kind of libertarianism. And then slowly but surely, I started weaning off of libertarianism because I didn't see it as a kind of complete picture. And I want it all. I want kind of a complete picture. And a lot of ideologies poses that. So like if, you ascribe to Marxism, for example, you see the world as through a Marxist lens. And so I started getting back into my faith, and I found that it was what I was looking for, which is pretty much everything. So I could talk about art, I could talk about politics, I could talk about economics. All of that is in the church. So that's where I am today.
So just to verify, and you don't have to answer those questions. Are you Hispanic, if I'm not mistaken?
Uh, I mean, I'll leave my voice to kind of be the answerer.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Uh, because I kind of wanted to delve a little deeper into how your identity, if it matters to you in any way, shape, or form, where you live. Does your identity create some sort of tension? Does your identity not matter? Are people like, oh, that's Noku, he's from this origin, but we don't care? Or have you had kind of like ethnic tensions in your childhood, let's say like in middle school or whatever?
No, 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 no. Where I grew up, I won't go into too much detail, but where I grew up, it was normal to have like all kinds of people. Um, so so a lot of what is seen as racist, etc., is just foreign to me because I grew up in a melting pot. So
Interesting. Inky, you want to ask a question?
Bueno, I think it's wonderful that we've linked up with this individual. Noku, it's a pleasure to meet you.
likewise.
And I smell refried beans coming in through here. So so let's let the audience you know do what they want to with that as far as Noku's ethnicity. But
Yeah.
I think we're in family. Let's just say that. But I always just based on what you had said previously, faith is it really truly is a gift, And what I tell people who don't have it, or even perhaps even more sensational, they don't want it. Well, okay, just try it. Drop on your knees and say, God, I don't believe in you. God, I don't know you. God, I don't think I even want to know you, but help me. And see what happens. Ask for it. Ask for it. I think faith is a gift that God will give to you if you ask Him, and maybe even if you're not really kind of predisposed for it. So it's interesting that that you mentioned that when you were opening, and also that you had mentioned that you were into doing good, but now of course, that good outside of the state of grace merits nothing. So it's good that you're racking up your rewards in heaven, and in short, I'll let you continue speaking, or let Klaus ask you another question. But seems like we're in for an interesting evening, and I'm glad that you're on the program.
Thank you very much. To kind of build on what you just said, one of the things I found through kind of my journey is that the church needs to kind of, in a sense, get with the times with a lot of the mean
Mm.
words. And what I mean by that is you just described faith as kind of this gift, and it is this gift. But um, I said that I came from a secular background, and I consider secularism as a religion. And so it's not that people lack faith. Is everybody has faith, everybody worships, but then the question becomes, are you worshiping with a pure heart? And that's what that my answer during my secular years would be no, because one of the beliefs that I hold today is that the word religion often is seen in as too small. Religion is key to life. It's the most, in a sense, it's the most basic thing to life. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes when you go to the root of words, it really tells you a lot about what a word means. Not all the times, sometimes the meaning at the beginning doesn't matter today. But in the case of religion, there's a lot to gain out of the original, which is religare. It's a Latin word, and it means to,
How do you spell it? Can you post it in the comments so I can
uh,
highlight it?
Yeah, I'll just, but really, so, so this word in particular, I don't want to log out here. Just click the X. This word in particular is very, it says a lot because it means to bind, and the Romans came up with it. Um, and so my meaning of religion is the binding of the human heart to the heart of God. And so taking that meaning as true, it's the most basic thing you can do because it gets to the heart of the heart. You're binding your heart to the heart of God. And so you take the case of an atheist. What occurs in atheism? Well, atheism is a kind of polytheism because once you make the choice to remove that bond, that pure bond, that natural bond, your heart to the heart of God, you find that you end up binding your heart to false gods, and one of which is the secular God, the God of tolerance, the God of indifference, of equality. Money is a God for some people. So I would say during my secular years, I was a polytheist. And now that I'm at home in the faith, thank God, I'm a monotheist because it is one bond. And that bond is one of love, and it's the most basic bond that, that
That's very interesting because I find that sort of etymological origin of the word religion very interesting. I think I might have read somewhere that it religiare in the sort of religious sense would be something more akin towards a community, so the community coming together as opposed to the explanation when you stated, which is really interesting by the way. I'm not contesting it. And that's why I kind of when I found that out, I found the word religion a lot stronger than spirituality because you see a lot of people nowadays, especially the youth, they're like, "Well, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, blah blah." And it's kind of like this very sort of
it's secularism.
empty.
That's exactly my answer when I was a secularist. That was exactly my answer. I'm not a part of an organized religion. I'm more spiritual, but spiritual already implies a kind of closer, a faith that is tied to the heart, not so much, tied to an organized body. But the two match up, and I'll get into how.
Yeah, I think Noku made an excellent point because I think all three of us will probably agree that religion is just a normal condition of man. It's just a question of who's your God. And I think he addressed that rather well.
Yes, and honestly, that exactly you just hit it exactly where it is. Everyone has a god. Everyone has a metaphysical concept that they defer to when their logic cannot explain certain things. I mean, in a certain way, that's why I kind of respect anyone who's an actually believe in nothing and he's just like a almost like a robot. Like I can see, okay, you may not believe in God, but at least you're going all the way you're going to the logical conclusion with your preferred beliefs or lack thereof because yeah you see a lot of people, especially a lot of atheists that tend to be left wing and progressive, and they tend to worship the state as this sort of entity that can do it all, it can see it all, it can help with all, because they've been kind of stripped away from that natural desire for something greater than themselves. And it kind of like, I guess the white pill here is that the youth is kind of figuring it out. I would say people born after the year 2000, they've kind of been realizing that no one really is an atheist at the end of the day. People do believe in something, even if it's not the stereotypical, God as we know it in the West, the guy with the beard in the sky and that type of thing. But this sort of question of returning to religiosity, do you guys think it's a bit of a fad? Do you think it's indicative of a larger and longer term trend within our youth? Where do you think? Where do you guys think that's going? And specifically in terms of traditional Latin mass and that type of thing.
You go first, Inky.
Well, I think that it is perhaps like a seesaw type of situation, like a pushback when the oligarchs that rule over us crank up the heat and people get desperate, they start trying to keep things basic, trying to keep them simple. And I think a lot of that has people rediscovering the faith of their fathers and remembering and recalling everything that they would have us forget that has to do with the ultimate truth of reality, of why we are here. That you could have asked, a 6-year-old boy 300 years ago, and he would be able to tell you. But you ask a 65-year-old college professor now, and he might be dumbfounded. So I think it's a little bit of pushback, and perhaps also maybe just another. We're just traveling through the stages of the church, so possibly it could be, the church remnant kind of making a stand for what hopefully will be the triumph of the Immaculate Heart of Our Lady. These are ideas that just kind of come into my mind when I'm asked that question, but I think it's it just has to do a lot with that kind of sort of thing. Sort of like people, erroneously, of course, they'll turn to, Wignetism and, like Hitler adoration and, Mussolini and all these guys. I'm not judging them right now at this point, but, they kind of like start digging up and saying, no, wait, what's going on is horrible. It's not right. There has to be something better. And they start, going back to see like where things went wrong. And I think ultimately the Christ pill is the ultimate pill that, that you take. And I'll leave it there. My initial thoughts on that.
Yeah. I see a lot of, at least in the States, what you have is on both sides, the lie that people are sold is that there's a left and a right when both are the same. Both are liberals. On the right, you have conservatives that worship Ronald Reagan openly at times. And then on the left, you have those that worship Ronald Reagan in a hidden way. It's not so clear. But the God is the same. It's the God of liberty in a very poor sense. It's not liberty in the richest sense imaginable. It's more like a reduced kind of form of liberty. But you see, he touched upon some of these identitarian movements, and when I claim that religion is the binding of the human heart to the heart of God, there's a lot to unpack there. And Klaus, you brought up the state. The state is a body, right? If you look at the body in the way that I'm about to present, you'll see it everywhere. So you think of the human body as having different members or different organs. You have the heart, you have the brain, you have the hands, you have the feet, and they're all one, right? And so in a way that is analogous, when you look at the state, you have the head, who is, the president or whatever, and then you have the different parts of the body. So, the ones that are below the president, below the head, but they're all one body. So you could think of, the family, the nation, the globe, whatever is home to people as a body. And any body that is alive has a beating heart. And the heart is the very deepest core of that body. So with this logic, I'm able to define the church as a heart, the corporation as a heart, the government, the nation, the town, the family, this particular space that we're in that is formed of different members of one body. This space is a heart. And so when you look at religion as the binding of the human heart to the heart of God, another way to see that is the kind of, what's outside the church and the church. So you could think of the heart of man as the community, the society, the polis, and you could think of the heart of God as the church. And so you really have religion as that bond that connects what's outside the church to what's inside the church. And so proper religion is found in the Catholic faith, because there you have God in his purest form. But when you're not a part of this body, you'll be a part of different bodies. So the heart of God is reduced to the state. The heart of God is reduced to an ideology. You're taking something that is alive and you're reducing it to an idea or an ideal that is dead. Really, equality in a sense is dead. At least the Marxists, it's dead. And so this is what you have. And so, this reaction that's occurring right now, part of it is people that are reacting to like wokeism, for instance. Wokeism makes religion very clear, because when you seek to cancel somebody for their beliefs, this is not too far away from, witch burning, right? It's a different way of canceling somebody. And so these religious displays that are getting more and more clear result in a reaction where people flock to the religions of their own, even without knowing it. So, you'll
Yes.
identitarianism, which worships a particular identity, the white race. That becomes a god for some people. America first, this kind of nationalism that worships the nation. So you again, you have these reductions from the heart of God to false gods, and so that ties into what I said at first with the definition of religion, you know.
Definitely, and I think the biggest sort of neo religion that we see today is wokeism, which is a very interesting sort of secular faith, as far as secular faith being interesting it goes, right? It's kind of interesting how you can fit the physical description of everything a woke person would want you to be. So, I guess to put an example of myself, I'm not white, I'm an immigrant. I'm straight, but I guess that's kind of like the one thing they may not like about me. It's like, I'm an immigrant, I'm not white. Yeah, in those particular terms, I could possibly identify as oppressed, but yet I'm not, and so I'm considered a heretic, right? Because I don't believe in the woke ideology, and as a result, it doesn't matter. It no longer matters what I am. It kind of matters what I actually believe in. It's like, but you do actually believe you're oppressed, and that the white supremacy and the patriarchy is like, no, not really. I don't feel oppressed by anybody. So it's really interesting how exactly it feels a lot like you're excommunicated, because everyone just assumed that you were going to be part of the faith, and you're not, and then they kick you out. I think, yeah, I see that you probably wanted to add something. Or...
Well, the way I see it, you have 3 strikes, my brother. You're a male, you're a Christian, and you're straight. So
that is true. That is true. But
I don't know. You're next. You're next on the chopping block.
Yes, and actually, that's a very interesting sort of conversation we can have, because at least with the progressive Democrats, it kind of seems that they give you a pass if you're, say, Hispanic, or say, for example, if you're Muslim of any ethnicity, right? So if you're Muslim, you can have very patriarchal beliefs, sometimes just outright sexist beliefs, and they'll kind of like hand wave it away and use cultural relativism and say, oh, but it's their culture, and we don't want to be too imposing on them. And if you're a Hispanic immigrant, especially if you're an illegal Hispanic immigrant, they also kind of hand wave your traditionalism and your problematic patriarchal beliefs away a little bit. But I think with us, it's more like, they'll get to it around eventually, right? They'll be Latinx in like 2 generations. We don't worry too much about that. So I've kind of noticed that there's things that I can get away with that the regular white American guy just can't get away with. Right.
This is true. There is some privilege remaining. The state being the body explanation that Noku gave was really quite interesting, because often we hear that the state governs the body and the church governs the soul, right? So they kind of work together. The king and the bishop have like a 50-50 responsibility split and governing their kingdom. Unfortunately, now we would say, state or nation or republic or whatever the case might be. And then as far as the up and coming religions, do you guys think that COVIDianism is part of wokeism, or do you think these are the two pagan religions that are like, in contest for the hearts and minds of the people?
Actually, very interesting question. I would say it's become a bit of a pantheon in a way.
Exactly.
So you have a COVIDism, which would be like the Zeus, and then wokeism, which would be like the Hercules, or I don't know my Greek theology, right? So so now it's kind of become a pantheon of, okay, are you pro trans? So now you worship the god of trans. Are you pro Fauci and whatever? Okay, you worship Fauci. And do you worship this racial progressivism of these POC, whatever? That's another god that you worship to it. So it's really has become a pantheon where you can kind of mix and match, but you're kind of generally expected to worship all the gods because that gives you the most fervor with them or whatever. But it's a very interesting question the way you posited it.
Yeah, but to build on that, and again, to go back to the original claims I made, again, a proper religion is a bond of love, right? So it's the binding of the human heart to the heart of God. And when you make the choice, whether you're aware of it or not, to remove that bond, then all hell breaks loose because you turn into a polytheist. And so it's fitting that you do have a pantheon, because the heart, which is endless and which is made for the endless God, is not gonna be satisfied with one idol. So it's gonna seek as many idols as it can find. And so you have a lot of different religions today, and they are clashing with one another. You do have this lack of unity that comes from the fact that, in a sense, they don't have a visible head, and that ties into the papacy, right? The Pope is the visible head of the body of Christ, right? And so when you see the Pope, the visible body makes the invisible body visible. And I get this from Pope John Paul II the Great, Saint John Paul II. He made this very clear in his theology of the body, that the body makes the invisible movements of the heart visible. So before anybody ever sins outright, let's say in a lustful way, they sin in their heart. But the body does make visible the movement of the heart, the sin of the heart, the lust, and so in that sense, one of the strengths of the church is that we have a visible body. You could see the authority that has been passed down from Christ, starting with the Pope, who is the head servant. He's the servant of servants. And then the apostles and those that have come after. And really, in that sense, the church is competing with these many different religions. It's like a multi-headed dragon, But as history has shown, 2,000 years worth of history, these religions will have their day in the sun, and then they'll pass away, and the church will be left standing. And that's a sign of hope,
I don't think we could say that for any other institution on the face of the earth.
Yeah, and part of that, people often look for an argument for the existence of God, or for the validity of one particular faith. And I think that, the fact that the church has stood tall, it's swayed. It's definitely swayed. You take a look back in the day with Arianism, things were looking pretty dark, and so it's gone back and forth and back and forth. But
I think it's pronounced Arianism, if I'm not mistaken, because the other one would be a different sort of thing.
Yeah, it's Arianism, but to go into again, the atheists.
Wait, is it actually pronounced like that? Is it pronounced Arianism?
Yeah, it was Arius. It was he was a bishop, I think, Arius.
Yeah.
So that kind of explains displays of this pantheon you talked about. And that's really one of the contrasts between back in the day and today. If you look at ancient Greece and ancient Rome, they were very clear about the fact that they worship multiple gods. At some point, the Caesar was a living god, in a sense, and he was worshipped. But now it's not as clear. So it's kind of more concealed. But I think you've seen a shift in this with, some people that are seen as psychopaths, right? And this is one of the uh, things that has interested me lately. You take a look at COVID, right? Yeah, it's affected a lot of people, and a lot of family members have passed away and whatnot. But you do have these people that treat it like a religion, and they're so. In religious terms, we would say that they're so pious and they're so fervent in their belief. They're so zealous, and you see this in kind of psychopathic displays of, let's just take the heretics and cancel them wholesale. Let's ban them from this and that, right? That's somebody with religious fervor. But, on a quote unquote secular level, you would say that that person's crazy. But it's really just this fervor that we naturally have for God, just kind of misguided.
Right. Yeah, they even have their own sacramentals, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, take the knee. That's become a major one. And sorry.
The clearest one is the mask, right? The mask is a sign, that you're a part of the faith.
That is true. It's kind of like having a camandula. It's like having a little I don't know how to call it in English.
Maybe como un escapulario, right?
Escapulario, eso. Yeah.
Right. Like it's an outward sign of your consecration to Our Lady. So you have you have your mask. That's an outward side.
That's like having the cross. Yeah.
Yeah, right, or something.
And
then taking the knee would be kind of like doing the la bendición. I don't know how these things are in English. Like, I'm so bad.
Yeah, the blessing.
Like blessing. Yeah, blessing yourself. Yeah, with the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, that type of thing.
So baptism has to be the clot shot.
Yeah, I don't want to say it because I don't want Klaus to get banned, but you clearly see that's a sacrament, and even the rhetoric is to the effect that, take the sacrament and you'll be saved. That they make no qualms about it. They don't seek to hide this, saved.
That is very true. Wow.
Saved from what? Saved from death, right? So this is a very effective religion because many people are afraid of death. But you're afraid of death if you lack faith. If you don't believe that there's a God who rose out of it, then you're gonna fear death. You don't want to die. Instead of seeing death as a kind of door to the other side, you see death as the end of the story. And so you don't want the story to end, so you're gonna go along.
Yeah, a lot of people have a lot of difficulty dealing with death nowadays. Back in the day, people were a lot more upfront about their mortality and a lot more hopeful, obviously, because they thought, I've been a good Christian throughout my life. I think I'm going to go to heaven, Obviously, I'm going to do my last sacraments and, it's whatever God wants. It's not up to me. But, I kind of feel like I am going to go to heaven. I've been nice, whatever. But nowadays, since people do believe that this is it, it's kind of ironic because they believe that this is the only life they have, but they end up wasting it anyways.
Yeah,
right?
but it is that kind of nonsense that you find often with disordered religion. It's like they'll say something, they'll push their dogma, and then they contradict it like in the same sentence, or they do something right away, and so it doesn't make any sense. But that's the way of false idol worship.
I think we've seen this coming for a long time, or at least I kind of conclude that we have, with, for example, getting a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt. Now, surely I'm not promoting people not to wear their seatbelt.
Yeah.
But if, they don't want to, I just don't understand why. or bike helmets. I remember that this was a big thing in the late 80s. Maybe not so much. Maybe like early 90s or like where, hey, you had to make sure you had your helmet and you had your knee pads, and then you had, it's just like this obsession over obsession with safety, where it's almost like like and again, I mean, I'm not trying to say that people should behave dangerously
ANCAP
or
moments.
what, okay, or reckless, or
I'm playing.
No, I'll give you a dub on that. Sure. I think the ANCAPs would probably agree.
Yeah, no, but
You know,
I can critique ANCAPism because it's just an extreme form of liberalism. That's all it is. But
We'll get to that. We'll get to that later.
yeah,
Don't worry about it.
but
Inky, you were saying?
just to go back to what I said about Rome, in Rome, if you look at the rise of Christianity in the Roman Empire, in particular at that time, yes, the Roman Empire was in decline, but you're talking about a faith that essentially conquered the Roman Empire, and you see this with Constantine making Christianity the official religion. But you ask yourself, how did the Christians conquer mighty Rome? And they did so by literally dying for the faith. They look forward to becoming martyrs because they saw it as a chance to be one with their lover. And so it was that love that they had for Christ that led them to give up their life. And you see, in these kind of false religions, how that's been twisted. So instead of being willing to die because you're going to be reunited with your lover, you're afraid to die. There is no lover to be reunited with. And so that's being used against people, and you see how cowardly it is. People are getting blamed now they're getting labeled as I don't want to say the word, but there's blame to go around. It's like we haven't returned to normal, so it's all their fault. But it's really just an act of cowardice, and they'll do whatever it takes to just admit that they're afraid to die and they don't want to die, and so they'll just act like cowards.
Yeah. No, I mean, what's to disagree with what you said? That seems to be a rather fair analysis of what's going on. I think from that point, if you're able to let's say it's just upgrade or move to the next step, is it's just being afraid of being caught with your pants down, or that is to say, being called to your reward when you haven't confessed, or you're you did something you weren't supposed to do. I think that's the fear that perhaps like mid-tier, I'm going to call myself a mid-tier Christian here, just to humble myself, fears, right? Like I do something that I wasn't supposed to do, and then my fear is like, okay, please, like, do not let this bus hit me. Like, I need to make it to the confessional. I just that sort of fear. But again, that's also a fear of playing with fire when you shouldn't. And thing is that we're idiots at the end of the day.
Yeah, but it's kind of a double fear, because one, you fear death, and then another one, you fear a different kind of death, and that different kind of death is getting canceled. So you have this kind of threat being canceled that is around the corner, and it's just it's in the background. You see it in your peripheral, and so you try to act in a way saintly, right? Because the woke mob is gonna burn you at the stake, and so in order for things to improve, what you will need is courage. This willingness to die for ideally for the heart of God, that the greatest thing that there is. That's where everything comes from, and it's where everything is going. Christ is the Alpha and the Omega. In the Eucharist is the Alpha and the Omega. So this is part of the reason why people are turning back to the faith, because not all of us are cowards. And if you're going to die, if you're going to get canceled, if you're going to be deemed a heretic, then might as well go out in style.
Yeah, you could even probably link that to, without divulging much or anything of, what I've done in my life, what we've all probably done in different ways. Everybody's different. Have you noticed that that when you're in a state of grace, you are much more boisterous, much more fearless. But if you're not, you're neutered, right? Because you don't want to like put yourself in a position where your number gets called and you're not ready for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but part of the reason why I emphasize the Eucharist, the heart of God, so much is because it's a mystery, and with mystery comes paradox. So you are and you aren't. You are and you aren't. Um, it's definitely a paradox.
Yeah, I
In
think
my personal experience, I do feel certain times, not necessarily throughout the day, specifically like the 24-hour day, but throughout my life, I have felt that there are times where if God could just strike me right now, I wouldn't really particularly mind too much. I'm at peace with myself. I've made my peace with others. I've done confession, all that. And there are some other times where I'm like, oh, I really don't want to die today. Like, I really don't. I'm not feeling it today. So I definitely kind of see what you mean by that.
Yeah, but the reason why I bring up paradox is because fear is natural, and fear is good. It's basically good in the sense that we're taught to fear God, right? If we love God, we fear God.
and only.
We realize that we are sinners, we are flawed, we're nothing without everything, right? God is love, love is everything. So we depend on everything for everything, and without everything we're nothing. And so we're told to fear God, we're told to hate evil, but it's in fearing God that we have no fear, right? And that's why you say, being in a state of grace. Well, a state of grace is a state of fearing God. And if you fear God, you have peace, but if you fear false gods, if you fear death, then you're restless, you know. And so it's this paradox that when we fear God, we have no fear, right? And when we don't fear God, then we live in fear and we're cowards.
Yeah, well said. I'll agree with that 100%.
Very good point.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
It's something exclusive to His Majesty. You only fear Him.
Yeah,
That's it.
and there's just a lot of different aspects that are natural. You see a lot of people, again, having come from a secular background. You have people that get into like conspiracy theories, and they say, "Oh, well, this is happening and that's happening, etc." This curiosity is normal. It's natural, and the curiosity at best serves love, right? The mystery of love, the mystery of the heart of God. To be curious about it, to want to know more about it, to contemplate it. But again, if it's impure or disordered, then we're going to end up being curious about the wrong things, and that's actually what Satan uses, right? Often people go willingly into his arms when they start playing with the Ouija or whatever. I don't even know the name of those things, but they start getting into spiritual or tarot or all these different things, and they open themselves up, right? So it's a kind of disordered curiosity. And so a lot of what people have today is basically good. It just needs to be purified, and I'm of the belief that if you're to purify it, you'd be Catholic.
Very interesting point where you mentioned that if you don't fear God, technically you always live in fear anyways. And sorry to make such a basic girl sort of film comparison to
Yeah,
that, but it reminds me a lot of the Dark Knight Rises. When Batman,
yeah,
when he's trying to get out the pit and he's got the rope, so that kind of like it kind of, yeah, it makes it safer, but it handicaps him in a way because he is in a way living in fear, right?
yeah,
And so when he takes out the rope, it's like it's either do or die. I either make this jump or I die, and that's when he actually makes the jump. So it kind of reminds me of when you have real faith in God, like when you know that God is real, and if you die, you're gonna go somewhere else, and hopefully you go to heaven. There's a certain sort of zeal, a certain sort of unafraidness, to put it that way. It's like you can kill me right now and I don't even care, bro, because God is with me, and that's he's
yeah,
gonna take care of me. But exactly, but people who believe that this is it, that this is the one life and there's nothing else. And again, I stated this just before. It's like in a way they kind of live very limited lives
yeah.
because
They, they,
yeah,
they
exactly.
don't live. They don't live because one of my basic views is to be in love. right? So insofar as we're in love. And if you're not in love, then you aren't. So there's a sense in which you don't exist, but that's hell. You know, hell is a kind of non-existence. And one of the things that, the church needs to stress is the heaven and the hell that is here right now. Because one of the things I've done as of late is I've gone back to the church fathers. And in particular, there's a group of church fathers. These are, like very holy men from the early church that we consider fathers or like authorities, out of respect. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you had a group of fathers from the desert. You had the Syrian fathers, you had the desert fathers. These were located in Syria, Egypt, Palestine, maybe Arabia. I'm not too sure about that. But, in the Middle East and the deserts. And they really stress the heaven and the hell here, and that's in the heart, you know so a lot of people, when they think of heaven and hell, they think of places that are beyond this world, whereas these monks and these fathers were really going out of the way to stress that heaven and hell are in your heart. Heaven and hell are a state of being, in a sense, that are as close to you as anything. And so, if your heart is pure, you're in heaven. You're, in a sense, you're in heaven, not in the way in the afterlife forever, but in a kind of limited sense, in time, you're already in heaven. Like, you already get a taste of it. But the same is true on the opposite end, right? If you don't have if you have an impure heart, there's a sense in which you are in the kingdom of Satan, and it's this war of the heart that is being fought within every heart, before we see it in the world with, like, the conspiracies and the oligarchs, because the oligarchs have hearts too, and they're fighting this war as well, right? So I stress that aspect because the ideal, in line with a lot of the fathers, is to have a pure heart in this world, and that will, carry on to the next. But the same is also true. So, if you are living in hell here, there's a sense in which you're a zombie. You're a living dead. You're dead, but you're alive. You
Kind
know?
of like NPCs,
Yeah,
or
yeah, that's a zombie. Yeah.
yeah, I definitely have seen. Maybe because I just go to Walmart and I don't shop where the quote unquote good people shop at. But when I go to Walmart, I do see a lot of dead faces or people who are just, as you say, they're not even alive. They're just like a flesh and bone computer that is just navigating the world for God knows what reason. Really, I do see a lot of Dutch stares
Well, I would
when I
say
go to.
to defend my NPC brethren, the reason is love, right? Love is why we do anything at all. Love is why there's anything in the first place. Philosophers have thought a lot about this. They said, like, why is there something instead of nothing? And the answer is love. Uh, you have another problem in philosophy that they make a big deal. They say, like, it's called the problem of evil. It's like there's so much evil in the world.
Mm-hmm.
How could God allow all this evil? Well, the answer is love, right? God's answer to the problem of evil is the cross. It's the simple fact that, yeah, I know what that feels like. I suffered this evil as well, and sometimes suffering with another person is better than any kind of syllogism, like philosophy, right? Um, and so you do have that. You do have that, and it's not so much that the NPCs are not alive. In a sense, they're not alive, but their hearts, and at any moment, they can snap out of it, and that's up to the church to do. And the way the church will go about it is by speaking to the heart, through art, through beauty, through dance, through love.
So in my head, when you were talking about heaven or hell in the material world, I couldn't really stop thinking again about, either being in a state of grace and having the Holy Trinity dwell inside you,
Yes,
or
yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
okay, or being in a state of mortal sin and shooing it out. But then I'm also thinking, well, okay, that's for somebody who like understands the ultimate truth of reality. But I was then thinking maybe the NPCs and these other characters are dead in another way, because it's just like they don't even know that they're in immortal
Damn.
sin. You know, it's like
It's like they don't even know that they don't know.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's like
Damn.
they don't stand a chance in the short run. I mean, everybody stands a chance, but you know what I mean. I don't know
Yeah, and
what you
and
could
that
add it.
Bro, you went deep on that one.
yeah, but this is a very, it's a very effective trick by Satan, because we're in a war of hearts, and one of the most effective ways to win a war is by getting people to not even be aware that there's a war going on. So if you have, if you're fighting an enemy and the enemy doesn't even know that there's a fight, it's much easier to beat them.
Sure, sure. Just like the devil prefers that you don't believe he exists.
Yeah,
Right.
and again, to kind of stress the fathers went out into the desert, and the thing about the desert is that there's nowhere to hide, right? For better or worse, there's nowhere to hide. It's plain, and so it's a kind of sink or swim, where because there's nowhere to hide, there's no excuses to be made. There's nowhere to turn to but God. If you do that and you make it out, then you'll become stronger for it. But we don't have that today. You take a look at a lot of the cities. The cities aren't a desert. The cities have plenty of excuses, plenty of reasons, plenty of outlets. And that's what keeps people kind of ignoring the fact that they're in a war.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you at all. So I wanted to move on to two other topics. I think you said something a bit critical about nationalism, or worshiping your people, and we can get in. And then the other part would be, what are your criticisms of quote unquote libertarianism? I don't even know what libertarianism is nowadays.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own different concepts. So the first question would be more specifically: could you have an ethnic sort of sense of who you are and also be religious? Because I feel like people seem to have this tension where it's, oh no, but you have to put your race first, and I'm like, no, I don't think so. I mean, you can be pro your people and not put your race above God. I don't think that's a contradiction. What do
Yeah,
you say?
it's a natural insight you just had. Um, so when you're talking about identity, it's very key to kind of look at the theater. And the reason why is because the theater is this, the stage is the realm of the persona. I was looking into the word person. It's kind of a long story. I could probably get into some other time, but I was looking into the word person and where it came from. And the word person came from persona, and persona, is a mask. So this is one of the key aspects of my thinking. When I speak of the heart, I speak of the person. When I speak of the mask, I speak of the persona. And so when you get up on stage, you are a person. Johnny Depp is Jack Sparrow. His heart is his mask, but it's not at the same time. Like a really good actor is going to suck you into the performance to where you're going to lose sight of reality. You're going to be so immersed that you're going to believe that Jack Sparrow is real. But that's just, a really good actor. That's what they do. But the two are different. And when you think of identity, identity is a mask. So I am American, right? The mask is a way of being a heart in his heart. So when Christ sees your heart, he sees all of your masks. He sees you as a Colombian. He sees you as a resident of the world. He sees you as a resident of whatever town you are. He sees you as a member of a particular ethnicity, race, nation, creed, etc. All of these identities, all of these masks are in your heart. And when God looks at you, he sees your heart and he sees all of your masks. So it's in loving, it's in pure love, in the love for the Eucharist, the heart of God, that you have room for all of these identities. You can value the family, you can value the community, you can value the nation, you can value your a race, ethnicity, whatever mask you pick, you can value them all in Christ because you value the heart. But if you don't, what you wind up doing is you just reduce the heart to a mask. So instead of me being a person, I'm a persona. I'm an American. And then Americanism or nationalism becomes my identity, right? And for politicians, this is very effective because you can unite a bunch of people together behind one mask, the America First nationalist mask. But the risk of that is it's a false idol, it's a false god, and the leader of the nation is going to be the one that decides whether are American or not.
So when you use the term mask, it's not really meant to be a sort of facetious thing, or it's more of like this is who I am, on this particular day or whatever, and this is who I am when I'm in this particular area. It's not so much that you're being fake. It's more that
yeah. So that's what I said about the kind of the theater stage. So, and this is very key to making sense of libertarianism, liberalism, the West, in short, today. So when you look at the theater stage, you have two aspects. You have the stage itself, and you have backstage or behind the curtain. And so the theater stage is, where you perform. It's where other people see you perform. So, the town square or the community, or even social media. Social media is a stage. Every time you tweet, you're going up on stage and performing for other people. You're putting on a mask. It becomes a problem when your mask on stage is not the same behind the stage. So on stage you act holy, but when you go behind the curtain, you aren't holy. And that's what we would call fake, right? Because your mask doesn't match your heart. And when you have a saint, you have someone that on the stage they're holy, and behind the stage they're holy. So in a sense, the heart and the mask are one.
Interesting. That's rather. Yeah, thank you for that. I never heard it put quite that way, but it makes a lot of sense. How I would answer the question, Klaus, is as far as and I think this will probably jive just fine with what our friends just said. But as far as identity, my number one and undisputed identity is Catholic.
Yep.
That's mine.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
If you tell me you could only have one identity, I'm sorry to disappoint maybe a small percentage of Momento Hispano followers, but it's not going to be Hispano. It's going to be Catholic.
No, well, actually, I would kind of un contrapunto ahí, because I don't really necessarily think that people who actually understand Hispanismo would even disagree with you.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Because your foremost identity has to be your relationship with God, right? Because that's what differentiates us with the race worshippers and the ethnicity worshippers. That first and foremost, before you are anything, before you're even a human being in a way, you are a Christian, you're a Catholic, you are a believer of God, and then other things come into play. Kind of like me, I'm Tolimense, that means I come from the department of Tolima, and then I'm a Colombian, and then I'm Hispanic, and then I'm a human being, that type of thing. But the first thing that I am, first and foremost, is a Christian. So I would definitely...
I could just stress this very key aspect. It's in the Eucharist. It's in the heart of God. It's in identifying as Catholic. Catholic means universal, so it's a kind of pure heart to pure heart relationship. It's in that pure hearted relationship that you have the perfection of all the other masks. So when you see the saints, you're looking at people that were fully Italian, that were in a sense perfect on a perfect level. They were Italian. They were males. They were whatever mask or identity you want to attach to them. If you want to see a perfection of those identities, you look at the saints. And so it's in becoming Catholic. It's in being Catholic that you're everything.
Yeah, and I think we could also look at Christendom and see how everybody was Catholic, yet everybody had perfectly defined identities. You know, whether you were Polish or French or, you know, Castilian, whatever the case might be, you had all these, you know, diverse ethnicities and cultures, yet they were, yeah. And of course, once in a while, there was, you know, a problem where there was a beef, you know, of who's going to succeed. And, you know, a couple of nobles would get on their horses and go and slap each other in a little bit. And maybe, you know, like 50 people died or something. And so, I mean, not to say that there weren't any wars, but it was much more harmonious and unifying. And yet everybody had their own identity. There wasn't this fear of, you know, being, you know, deracinated or anything like that, like we see nowadays.
Yeah, because and this gets to another aspect of my thinking. I think one of the greatest theologians of all time is Bob Marley, and it's not like he put too much thought into it. This came from the heart. When he said "one love, one heart," he summed it all up. Like all of theology is right there, and you know you do have this unifying aspect of the Catholic faith. It's the universal faith. It's true for all hearts in all times in all places. There's a sense in which all Catholics are one, right? You know, all pure hearts are one. Now, you see this more clearly in heaven among the saints who've already purified their hearts and they're one with God up there. But you know, there's a sense in which when we go to mass and we do communion, we're united to them up there as well. It's just, you know, on earth we have the effects of original sin, and so we slip up. We come up short a lot of the time, but the goal is still to be a saint. It's to be a Eucharist, and this is where, you know, I would give credit to Pope Benedict XVI, because a lot of this is influenced by him. You know, so among John Paul II and Benedict XVI, you have two guys that are really tapped into what the church needs to do. And you know, as a Catholic, it's very comforting knowing that the leaders of the church are pretty much like 100, 200 years ahead of time.
Home hit the blunt real hard. Nah, I'm just playing. I'm just playing.
Yeah.
I got caught with Bob Marley.
Because of the Bob Marley thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, I like Bob
Yeah.
Marley. I like reggae. I was raised on that, so you know.
You know, he converted to the church shortly before he passed away. But you know,
Really?
Did he now?
yeah,
Oh, okay. I
What?
didn't know that. I didn't know that.
yeah. And so you have this, you know, for me, I see him kind of as a saint, but you know, there's a whole process. But you do have this one love, one heart, and it's this unity, this oneness that you really can't find nowhere else, because you don't have this pure heart that is the unifier of all of the identities, all the masks. You know, you take a look at something like globalism. Globalism has gotten a bad name because it's like this, you know, cabal of oligarchs that are seeking to take over the globe. But that's a Catholic, you know, mission, right? We're called to baptize all nations in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. So I just see in globalism a kind of, you know, corruption, a kind of heresy, inversion of the Catholic faith.
Yeah, we've certainly seen a lot throughout this discussion as well. We've seen a lot of perversions and sort of mockeries and sort of skinwalker variations of Catholic doctrines and beliefs. And certainly globalism is one of them, because globalism is kind of, from what I can see, it is a sort of graying of the world to make it into this one unrecognizable blob of
Now,
nothingness,
to
which is not what Catholicism is at all. It's
yeah,
not.
yeah, but to kind of, you know, tie this into with the libertarianism that I brought up at the start. So libertarianism is, in a lot of ways, it's a Christian creation. You can't make sense of liberalism without Christianity, because there was a kind of buildup to it for many centuries. But it is a heresy, because what it does is, you know, you think of liberty. There's two sides to it. It's like a coin with two sides, and one of the sides is negative liberty, and you see this among libertarians all the time. You know, freedom from the government, freedom from coercion, freedom from harm. This is freedom from disordered love, impure love. So I don't want to be enslaved. You know, slavery is a form of impure love. So I want to be free from slavery. So that's good. You know, liberalism gets a point, but that's all they do. That's literally all they do. And so you have this other aspect of the coin. What is freedom for? Now that you're not a slave and you're quote unquote free, what are you supposed to do now? And the liberals and the libertarians and the narco caps, they can't answer this because they don't have heart. And what I mean by that is you're free from slavery so you can be free for servitude, right? You're free from being enslaved so you be free to serve God with all
Well,
your
okay, so this is a perfect segue into the other part of the discussion. And I will have to concede that a certain number, I would say a significant number of libertarians, I would say even the majority, do fall into that pitfall. And as a matter of fact, I had a very deep conversation with a fellow Colombian. I think he's Orthodox, and talked about how evil and satanic it was because of her objectivism. Because essentially rational self-interest is about as demonic as you can get. That's literally what caused Satan to become Satan, right? He wanted to worship himself in a way and thought too highly of himself, and God cast him out. And so with that aspect, I certainly agree with those criticisms, right? That the sort of very Randian
But it's
I-theism,
not.
not really
No, no,
a.
no. It's not even Randian. A lot of it is in John Locke. You know, you got to go way back. But what this does, and you see it most clearly in the market. You know, there's a reason why the free market is practically worshipped among libertarians. They see it as kind of this omnipotent force, like the invisible hand that is just going to allocate all the resources where they need to go, like God or something. Um, it
Mm,
in the market you have this example what I'm talking about, because in the market you're free from coercion. Nobody's forcing you to patronize or to purchase a good on the market. Like, you're free to vote with your wallet. But then the question becomes, well, is that it? Is that what freedom is? You're just not a slave? And that's where my critique lies, in the fact that they can't answer that next question because they ignore the positive side of freedom. That's to say, you're free to do something, and that something is love, right?
well,
So,
yeah. So that's I'm gonna be a little bit more critical here and say that freedom from coercion, exactly, it must therefore follow something else. And what I would posit is that what follows next is voluntary submission to something greater than yourself. In this case, it would be Christianity, it would be Catholicism, it would be God. Now,
yeah,
we can certainly wax philosophical about the ulterior motives of why people get into libertarianism. And yes, I have noticed that a lot of people get into libertarianism because they want to be libertines. They want to have this sort of very promiscuous and carefree lifestyle and not have neither the government nor social norms dictate what they want to do.
yeah.
Again, I accept those criticisms. But the thing is that what I like about, and I would consider myself a voluntarist or a anarcho-capitalist or whatever, right? I consider myself that because I want to be given both the freedom and the responsibility to be able to do my own decisions. If I condemn
Mhm.
myself to hell, that's up to me. Now, again, I don't think that I'm on that road, not to say I'm a saint or anything, but I've certainly stopped engaging in certain behaviors. I'm going to be a bit personal here. I used to have an issue with weed. I used to have a weed
Yeah.
addiction. I've kicked that off. Thank God for that. And I actually did, I actually did attend a sort of prayer group that my mom kind of sent me to. It's like, just go to this prayer group. It was very evangelical in a way, but I'm sure it was Catholic because my mom's Catholic. She would never send me to one of those evangelical places.
Yeah.
But it was like, Jesús está aquí con mucho amor, and like that type of thing. Like, and that felt very invigorating, and it helped me kick my weed addiction and that type of thing. So Where was I? Yeah, so I would like to be given that sort of choice of, well, am I going to follow God or am I not going to follow him? Because I think forcing people to believe in God is not genuine. Like, it doesn't come from the heart.
Yeah,
Now, so I'll say that I don't think libertarians worship the market. I think what libertarians do is that they simply acknowledge that for the purpose of resource allocation, that is possibly the best way to do it because people in the market know what's going on in the market. It's very hard to dictate what should happen if you're a government bureaucrat just kind of doing this thing and that thing and shifting things around. But
but
that's, as you said, that is a one-dimensional aspect of life. Yes,
yeah,
and I don't.
that
Sorry.
suffers that suffers from the same critique. Like my same critique holds because then the question is, what are you allocating resources for? Like, and so what you
That
found.
depends on you.
Well, no, it doesn't. In a sense, it does, but in a sense, it doesn't because one of the answers that has been given, in the libertarian kind of thought is profit, right? And in the 20th century, you had some Catholics that critiqued capitalism, and they called it the primacy of profit. You know, now, yeah, profit could be good if you see it in a very big, rich sense, but often that's not the case. In the liberal order, profit is synonymous with usury because a lot of profit comes from usury. It's charging interest, and that's where you get your profits. So what you found with this kind of stress on the negative side of the coin, which I agree with, who wants slavery? Like what ends up happening is this creates a vacuum for a bunch of suitors that are willing to answer the question, what is freedom for? And the most effective suitor has been the usurer, right? And also the kind of the pimp. So you have this kind of sexual liberation and usury that takes primacy when you don't have this positive side of the coin clearly guided. And so what you end up seeing is what you have today, where a lot of wealth has become concentrated in a select few groups of investors and bankers and whatnot, because that's really what all the resources are being allocated towards. You know, it's towards profit. And my
Well,
dis-
who are you referring to? Because I'd probably guess that a lot of these people didn't operate in a fully free
yeah,
market
but
where, like,
that's
people like Jeff Bezos, like,
yeah,
Amazon's got contracts with the
I get that,
government.
but that's that worship of the free market I just brought up, because the defense or the apology that's provided by people that for their own reasons they value the market, they say, well, it's not a free market. Well, that's utopian, because as long as we're sinners, there's not going to be a quote unquote free market, right? We suffer from the effects of original sin. People are going to undercut each other on the market because they want to outsell their competitors. And so the Catholic answer to such a crisis, because that's what we're living through, is love. Because the negative side of freedom is you're free from impure love. So, you're not enslaved. But the positive side of the coin is you're free for pure love. So you're free from impure love so that you're free for pure love. And that implies, um, you talked about coercion, forcing people to believe. Well, love is a force, but there is
But not a coercion. Come
yeah.
on, those two are different.
I get what you're saying, and as a former libertarian, I'm picking up what you're putting down. But you do have this kind of, right now, it's freedom for impure love. It's freedom from impure love, so that we may be free to love impurely. And we do that by profit. Profit
I,
is
I
the god.
I get what you mean, but okay, so that I would, the freedom for on pure love, I would agree with you. And again, we would just have to try to convert the masses again to try to get them to, like, by their own selves go into this righteous path as opposed to being forced into them. So
Yeah, yeah.
now just a question: did I hear that correctly? Do you consider profit itself to be usury?
In the liberal and libertarian order, it's synonymous. When you see the word profit, you see usury, because usury is a lot of the source of profit. You know,
But
um,
no, let's not talk about what libertarian. Let me just put it this way: would you work personally, or do you work personally for profit?
yeah, but my meaning of profit is far broader, right? So profit for me would be love, right? When Christ said, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his own soul? He's kind of critiquing already this libertarian order or liberal order where profit is so far reduced to just, a kind of at the end of the month, did you make more than you lose, right? I'm in agreement that profit matters, but my meaning of profit is synonymous with pure love.
Hmm. Very interesting.
Mm, I'm getting a little
Eh,
lost here because, well, here's the thing. So within a market, you can still have cooperatives. I think the biggest one, which was actually Catholic inspired, would be the Mondragon Corporation, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
Let me see.
Yeah, no,
Is it
no, but
Mondragon?
but just to be clear, how would this look? Because I talk about this, and then I rather just give a kind of example. How would it look right now? A lot of the investment firms have gotten critiqued because they're buying up a lot of homes. So they're snatching up homes. You think BlackRock, Black Cube, Vanguard Group. Um, they're buying up a lot of these homes, and then what do they plan on doing? They plan on making a profit. So the profit comes at any means. Do
did hear
whatever it
about that.
takes. Do whatever it takes to make profit. And what I'm saying is, if you define profit as pure love, naturally it already does away with a lot of the abuses found in the profit of today. So instead of like the do whatever it takes to make profit, it's because it's pure love. There's already bounds and there's boundaries. Like,
Without the federal government printing all that money, they wouldn't really be able to have the capital to buy those homes in the first place.
yeah, but that all of
So,
that is a part of what I'm saying about the resource allocating resources for profit, which is synonymous with usury. The bankers are usually the biggest usurers, right? So all of it ties together. In the libertarian apology, it'd be like, we're not in a free market. This is a kind of corporatism. Well, you have to really blame the Fed instead of the people that are, just trying to go about their lives. No, it all ties in. It all follows from profit being synonymous with usury.
Well, I'll,
but
I'll
if
say
you if you
this, Klaus. Sharpen your pen, sharpen your next argument. I'm gonna give you like 30 seconds to so you come back with your best comeback.
okay, okay.
Give you few of my thoughts from what I've heard so far. And the first thing is regarding libertarianism. I'm obviously not a libertarian. I'm a Catholic monarchist. So I'm pretty far away from being a libertarian. Although one thing that I definitely agree with the libertarians is having sound money. Why? Simply because debasing the currency, doing this fractional reserve banking is theft, and thou shalt not steal. Right. So every time that you create more currency, not money but currency, you're basically diluting what everybody else has accumulated and worked for, and you're doing it by fiat, pun intended. Um, so, that's my opening thoughts on libertarianism. And I know you'd said something earlier too, and it reminded me of my grandmother would always tell me, "No confundas libertad con el libertinaje." Now you might have heard that from some of your
Exactly. I've heard that before. Yeah.
right, right. So another thing was that I mentioned. You said that, hey, I'm not, like I feel like I'm okay, but I'm not sure as far as like your state. And for that, we have, and I'm sure it'll come to your mind immediately, and you'll be like, oh, yeah, of course. We have the examination of conscience, right? That you could examine your conscience to see, see if you've done anything wrong. It's like a worksheet, like a go, have I done this? Have I done that? Did I do this? Did I do that? and you go through that worksheet, and then you could write down anything that you identify that you've done incorrectly, and you could go and you could confess, and at that point, you know that you're basically good to go. Also, it's funny. I just uploaded, actually today in the early wee hours of the morning, I uploaded a video about liberty.
I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an old 1996 video, and His Excellency starts. He talks about liberty in all angles. It's like a 2-hour class, but he opens up by talking about a 747, and the airline has basically, this is a scenario he's making up, of course, right? But the 747 has been liberated. So what does that mean? That means that there could be a shopping mall inside if it wants to. It could remove its wings if it wants to. It doesn't even have to have a compartment for gas if it wants to. Because, see, if you're following all these strict rules, then you're not liberated, right? But what happens when you do that? Either A, the plane's not going to take off, or if it does, it's going to crash. In short, you're not going to get to your destination. So that is a perverted form of liberty that we suffer from, where we want to do things that are not going to get us where we need to go. So liberty, there's two different liberties, So is liberty good? I would say it is. Catholic liberty is good. Masonic liberty is not.
Yeah, but if I may step in,
yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with this analogy, but to tie it into what I said, negative liberty is being free to take off, right? There's nothing stopping you from getting on the runway and taking off, but where are you taking off to?
Right. So your criticism would be positive liberty would be having the freedom to fly into a mountain, purposely.
It would be the freedom to fly into the heaven of usury, rather than the heaven, And so it's if you have a plane on the runway, and that plane is being forced to stay there, that's slavery. It's like it's chained up. It can't go anywhere, even if it wanted to, because it's enslaved. So this is where the libertarians and whatnot, I agree with them, like, take the chain off. But the problem that you wind up with is this kind of inactive plane, where it's like, now there's no chain. It can take off, it's free, it's not enslaved. But what ends up happening? You have a bunch of suitors that come along and they say, hey, come to our heaven, take off to our heaven of whatever. And what I'm saying is, the free is to be the plane is to be free to take off, but the destination is pure-hearted love, and that's the Eucharist. So you're free to love the heart of God. Your heart is free from impure love, so that it may be free for pure love. And that's liberty. That's freedom. Because freedom serves love. And in our liberal order, freedom is worshipped. Instead of serving love, freedom is what is being served. So.
Right. So our being free is as in genuine freedom, not free as in beer.
Yeah, free as in freedom serving love. So power serves love. Truth everything serves love. That's what it's for. Love is why the plane exists, and love is where the plane is going. And so that is freedom in its purest form, because it's for pure love. And so
could we then say that freedom is ultimately being a slave to God?
Slave, I would contrast with servant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's voluntary servitude, and then there's involuntary servitude.
Yeah.
I mean slavery in the spirit of, like the slaves of the Immaculate Heart of Mary, like
Yeah,
that.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
yeah, but you see in these kind of orders, it's so natural to them. But that's what I'm saying is the plane is free to take off, but you also have to value the destination. And right now, the destination is profit, aka usury, whereas it ought to be profit, aka pure love. And
Right.
that's how the Catholic Church has the burden to set things right. And that's how the Catholic Church is the only institution that can set things right because we have the Eucharist in its
Well,
purest form.
in that part, I certainly agree with, and that's why it's up to us. I would label you and Inky, lay theologians. It's up for you guys and up to me as part of the laity to sort of enlighten people with this sort of knowledge, because I think, specifically speaking from a Colombian perspective, a lot of Colombians are culturally Catholic, but they're not really religiously Catholic. They don't quite understand the faith very well. They're poorly catechized, and they believe things that are not in line with Catholic doctrine, or they think the Catholic doctrine says this when in reality it says that.
Yeah, but that's where I think again, the church needs to do better. And what I mean by that is the gospel isn't really hard to get. The gospel is about love, you know, and often the church gets so bogged down in like a lot of the process, like the catechism, learn this, learn that, that the law matters, but the law serves love. And so if you can teach people love, the Catholic faith is pure-hearted love, that's all they need to know.
Right.
Because everything else serves that. And sadly, today there's the catechism is this big book rather than you know, love.
Right. So exactly. And actually, that's very interesting what you said, because I do remember my catechism being more of a kind of preparing for a test. It's like you read this book, you read that book.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what's the answer to this question? Okay, da. And it's not so much a conversation about who Jesus Christ is and why he loves us so much, and why we need his love in this very fallen state of ours. Yeah, it really did feel like it was just
Yeah,
another
because I
class.
mean,
Like,
the best teacher is Christ himself. When he came down here in a humble state. He really didn't own much, and he spoke in a humble manner. Yes, he had parables. He's got style, but he spoke to the heart, right? And so that's what we've lost. As Catholics, as people that are supposed to follow him, we do the exact opposite. So it's no surprise that people end up confused.
yeah, we've certainly had those discussions where catechism is sorely lacking, and that's
The cat.
something where we should.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, of course it is. No, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, come on. Yeah, that's a problem that we have. That we have a lot of nominals, but not a lot of people that are well catechized. Now, as far as catechism goes, I think, man, what I would recommend is if you pick up the Baltimore Catechism, Volume 1, right? So it's a little confusing for the uninitiated, but there's 4 volumes. They're really the same material. It's just that Volume 1 is for like elementary school, Volume 2 is like for middle school, 3 is for high school, and 4 is for like college level. So of course, the material expands. But if you just pick up one, it's like I think it's like a 50, 60 page document, and it's in a Q&A format. Like question 1, like, who is God? And you get like a 1 or 2 sentence answer, right? Question 2, like, why are we here? And you get like a 1 or 2 second. I think, while we're talking about catechism, I'll just throw it out there that if you just pick up Baltimore Volume 1, it's a very simple catechism that'll get you, I think, way past the average knowledge of the average nominal Catholic.
Yeah, but my counter to that would be like that's cool and all, 50, $60, but you're talking about the masses, right? Like the church is 2 billion members. And the tragedy lies in the fact that the Bible is so common, and all you got to do is just go to the Bible and look at what Jesus said. They asked him about, Rabbi, what's the greatest law? And he said to love God with all your heart, right? So you start right there. This is what Christ came down here to tell us about pure-hearted love. You start right there, and then if people have questions, answer them from right there, because that's all you need to know. And in all the catechisms, all the dogmas, all the saints, the church fathers, this is what it's all about. It's all about pure-hearted love. So you're better off just starting right there, and then answering the questions that people have from right there, because you're keeping in mind what it's about in the questions and in the answers. And so I think that's where we're going, and that's why I said that Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict XVI, and even Pope Francis. Pope Francis goes around washing people's feet. That's good, especially for like the normies. They see that and they get it. They're reminded of what the faith is about, which is serving the poor, the sick, the mentally ill, the people that are ill in their heart. That's what the faith is about. So just start with Scripture itself, pure-hearted love, and then go from there. That's the greatest catechism.
I can't even really disagree with anything that you said. I'm in full agreement, and I think if I'm reading you correctly, I think you're saying, as far as evangelizing, regular people that you encounter, right, and have questions about the faith. Is that more like what you're kind of imagining there, like how to go about it, like it's just with regular people you run into?
Yeah, but Pope Benedict XVI, he's a genius, and right now the question that the people that know are trying to answer is like, if things get worse, what are we going to do? Are we going to live like in catacombs, or are we going to start our own communities like a lot of these monasteries did before they created Europe? You think Saint Benedict and Pope Benedict, he said the answer is be a saint, right? A saint is a Eucharist. When you see a saint, you see the heart of God. When you encounter Padre Pio, you encounter God, because he's so united to God that his heart is one with the heart of God. So when you encounter a saint, you encounter God, and that's the greatest evangelization. More than any book is meeting a heart of God, a saint, and so that's that.
Of course,
that is how you evangelize. But if you want to get into the nitty gritty, start with the greatest commandment.
Well, that actually reminds me of St. Francis, right? That St. Francis says that the best way to evangelize is not to speak a word. It's just live the gospel. Like just have people fall in love with the type of person that you are, and then from there you could take it from there, right? So you didn't even like speak or say anything. It's just
It's
Hold up. Let me make a point. Yeah, hold up. Yeah, I definitely saw a lot of the opposite when I was growing up, and maybe that's why I kind of went into this atheism phase, because I saw a lot of talkers, but not a lot of doers. You see a lot of people that, that's not Christian of you. You can't do this, can't do that. And next thing you know, they're doing what they say you should not be doing. But a lot of preaching.
To tie that back into what I said about the theater stage, that's putting on a performance on stage, and then when you see the person behind the curtain, you think, what will happen?
Right. No, I get what you mean.
Yeah, no, it's actually I don't think I've ever quite heard it been said that way, but I think it's valid, proper, and I mean, I don't disagree with it. So interesting.
Yeah, and I get people, all glory is due to God, right? Like I started the talk with bringing up how God has guided me. I have a miraculous medal I wear everywhere, and so like after Notre Dame burn, I started getting to my faith, and I learned about the miraculous medal, and I have it with me, and so all credit does go to God, but that is what it comes down to, and it's the hardest part. Being a saint is the hardest thing you can do in life. It's definitely not easy, because it's really being a pure heart. and that heart is, pure in front of others on stage giving the performance, but is also pure behind the stage. And I just love how the Catholic tradition values behind the stage in many ways more so than being on the stage. So like you think about the monks and the nuns who created a whole continent by tending to the poor, tending to the sick. That's behind the scenes work. Nobody is seeing that but God. And it's the fact that we've gone away from that, and we're more okay with performing on stage and showing I'm Catholic in front of everybody. A lot of trads fall into this pitfall. Look at how Catholic I am on stage, but then
That's true.
once you meet them behind the stage, it's like, what happened? And this causes people to become disillusioned and to turn away from the faith.
That is very true. And when I was a kid, it was a different sort of manifestation
Vainglory.
of that. But nowadays, it seems to be a lot of, Twitter cats and 4chan cats, I guess you can even say. So I guess the sort of pretend Catholicism of let me show how virtuous I am instead of actually living your virtues it's definitely one of those things. And it's not just with Catholicism. I've seen it with Islam as well. Like, you know how many people I've seen who are like, oh, I'm Muslim, I pray 5 times a day in it, and I go to Hajj, and they're doing
A
some.
slight British accent there. It must be well, they have a lot of them, I know, in the
Yeah,
UK.
a lot of Muslims in the UK, innit, bro. A lot of Muslims, mashallah, innit. But yeah, yeah. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to wrap it up here. But man, this was a really interesting sort of like faithful talk because Noko, let me tell you something. Like this channel is lacking on some faith talk. You know what I mean? So that's why I had to pull you in here, and we can get these discussion about theology rolling and that type of thing. If you guys enjoyed it, we might be able to do another one in a week or two. So. Any closing statements you guys want to put out there?
Well,
Inky, you go first.
thank you. Okay, yeah, I was just gonna ask for your, for you to do just that. I think, of course, right in the Momento Hispano circuit, people go to my channel for this kind of thing. But I think it's great, man. If you could, do it like once a quarter or monthly, I think a quarter if you don't want to do too much, right? So like every season you could do an episode like this, but if you want to crank it up a little bit, I think once a month would be awesome. And I think it would expose, your subscribers to perhaps the most important topic of them all.
Yeah, pretty much. I forgot to invite Cephas because I think you three, man, that would be like the panel on theology.
I would say, yeah.
So next time I gotta bring it on for real though. Cephas, I'm sorry I couldn't bring you. I forgot, but I'm gonna let you in next time. So definitely follow the homie Inky's channel. A lot of theologically based content, so you guys can get right with God and understand what's going on out there.
Hey, Klaus, I'll tell you what, but before you wrap it up, with your blessing, since we haven't really done one, would you mind if I mirror this on my channel as a Holy Hour?
Absolutely. And just for anyone listening, all of my content is, what do you call it? Common license, something like that. So it's totally copyright free. You guys can do whatever you want with it. Just let them know it's my, let them to the channel. And that's all.
Yeah, of course. That goes without saying. And then on top of that, I don't, if you want to do like a 48-hour blackout period, before I do, we could do that as well. You can message me, let me know.
Nah, you just repost as you wish. Don't worry. It's common license, so you can do whatever you want with it, whenever you want. All fine.
Beautiful. Yeah, I don't have much to say other than nice chat. I look forward to doing it. Whenever you need me, I'm here. As far as Noku, I'm gonna look him up right now and give him a follow on Twitter. And that's it for me.
Yeah.
All right, that's dope. Noku.
Thank you, Klaus, for having me on. Thank you, Inky, for taking part as well. And it's just been an honor. We'll talk, Klaus, as far as like future and stuff like that. In the past, I would say no to these kinds of things, but somebody could come up with a million reasons, but love at the end of the day is what it's about. So this is kind of my way of doing that. And there's a lot of topics I post about. Gender, sex. There's a lot of confusion regarding that. Politics. What is politics? What is that about? So yeah, there's a bunch of topics, and we'll see in the future. But it was an honor, and all glory goes to God, right? I'm nothing; He's everything. All bad things that I do are my fault. All good is His fault. So leave it.
Henry says we should end this with a prayer. I don't know if you guys want
Yeah, I could offer one.
to particular. Sure. You guys both can do one. I'll just
Yeah. So this prayer is more Eastern Orthodox, but it's helped me because it's so short, but it does matter so much. It's called the Jesus Prayer, or the Prayer of the Heart, and it goes, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner, and that's it.
Straight, simple, and to the point.
Yep.
And effective. Beautiful. Amen.
Yo, Inky, you're not gonna do one? Hello?
Oh, sorry, I muted myself. Well, yeah, I mean, I could do one if you want me to do one, of course. Come, Holy Ghost, fill the hearts of thy faithful, and kindle in them the fire of thy love. Send forth thy Spirit, and they shall be created, and thou shalt renew the face of the earth. Oremos. O God, who has taught the hearts of the faithful by the light of the Holy Ghost, grant that by the gift of the same Spirit we may be always truly wise and ever rejoice in his consolation, through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for everybody for tuning in, and God bless you all. You have a good one. Take care. Peace.
Yeah, likewise.